Brace yourselves for one of the most gut-wrenching stories of the season. Chancellor Rachel Reeves's controversial decision to slash winter fuel payments has left millions of elderly Britons in turmoil. With many pensioners now forced to choose between heating their homes or having a hot meal, public anger is at a boiling point. This isn't just a numbers game. This is about the lives of some of the UK's most vulnerable. Now, we're going to check out an interview that's making waves across the nation.
Thought the optics were awful. They were awful politically, although from Labour's point of view, it's very, very early in their government, very early in the parliament. There's plenty of time to recover from it. But more importantly, I think it was bad policy because we all know that there will be a lot of people who are just above that threshold, as there always are. But I think very, very much so in this case, who are going to suffer this winter. I mean, luckily it's very, very mild at the moment, so people will be saving a little bit right now. But I asked from the beginning, I asked the Labour government to reconsider. I said it publicly, and I would ask them to reconsider again. I understand the political toxicity of U-turns. If you think back to Rishi Sunak's government, there was U-turn after U-turn. I think that was probably true of Boris Johnson's Tory government as well. So I understand that Labour didn't want to set a precedent where they started U-turning as soon as a policy seemed to be unpopular. But I think this was a bad policy. Everyone will have their view, but I don't think many people turned out to vote in early July of this year for a Labour government to harm pensioners. And I think that will be the effect. So I would call on them again to change it. But just when I was cut off, I was making a defence of this idea of growing the economy partly through state investment. It is critical, because you're not going to get the private sector pumping billions of pounds into the NHS or pumping billions of pounds into crumbling schools or in building houses. Yes, they're part of the house building picture, but you have to have the conditions for growth in order that our hardworking businessmen and women up and down the land can then drive the engine further. And by the way, I am worried. Of course I'm worried with this rise in national insurance for employers, because the very real probability is that will hit workers, but it may also hit growth. And as I said at the beginning, if we don't get growth, Dawn, then Labour will answer at the ballot box.
The winter chill is already creeping in, but for over 10 million pensioners, the cold might not be their greatest enemy this season. Rachel Reeves's decision to drastically reduce the winter fuel payment scheme is poised to leave millions stranded in the icy grip of an energy crisis. Once a lifeline for 11.4 million older Britons, this crucial support will now be restricted to a mere 1.5 million, targeting only those on pension credit or similar means-tested benefits. The fallout is already being felt. According to a Kantar survey, 1 in 10 pensioners confessed they'll be forced to cut back on hot meals to cope without the payment. For many, this isn't just a blow, it's a sentence to enduring cold homes and empty stomachs. Nearly a quarter of pensioners admitted they used their winter fuel payment last year to cook meals, a stark reminder of just how vital this money was in keeping them afloat. Age UK has been inundated with stories of despair. One 81-year-old man revealed that he and his wife ration heating to just 1 hour a day. Another, aged 87, admitted he now stays in bed for most of the day, only getting up to eat. These stories are more than heartbreaking. They're a damning indictment of a policy decision that seems to disregard the basic dignity of the UK's elderly population. Caroline Abrahams, director of Age UK, didn't mince her words. The great majority of older people spent their winter fuel payment on energy-related costs last year. With fuel prices having gone up so much compared to 5 or 10 years ago, even older people who expected to be relatively comfortable in retirement have been impacted and forced to tighten their belts. But the government insists it is doing enough. A spokesperson defended the changes, pointing to other measures like the £150 warm home discount, cold weather payments, and the extended household support fund. Yet these initiatives, as well-meaning as they may be, fail to address the scale of the crisis facing pensioners across the country. For many, this decision has shattered the illusion of financial stability in their later years. More than half of pensioners surveyed said they'll be forced to reduce their heating use at home. And for those who narrowly miss the eligibility threshold for pension credit, the situation is even more dire. 53% of these individuals admitted they'd struggle financially without the winter fuel payment. Public reaction has been swift and scathing. Social media is ablaze with frustration and fury. One user wrote, "I've worked my whole life, paid into this system, and this is the thanks I get?" Labour should be ashamed. Another declared, "This will haunt Reeves and Starmer come election time. Pensioners vote, and they don't forget." The political fallout is already starting to take shape. Labour, which has long prided itself on being the party of social justice, now finds itself on the defensive. For Rachel Reeves, this policy was likely meant to address public finance shortfalls, but the optics of targeting pensioners, a demographic with immense voting power, may prove politically disastrous. Age UK has called on the government to rethink the decision and urged pensioners to reach out to their local councils for additional support. But even with council assistance, the gaps in funding are likely to leave many elderly Britons in the cold, literally and figuratively. Matthew Stadland's impassioned plea on GB News encapsulated the growing discontent. His fiery critique painted a stark picture of what Labour could face if they fail to address this crisis. This is political toxicity. You don't punish pensioners to plug holes in the budget. Reeves must reconsider, or Labour risks alienating the very people who have supported them for decades. While some argue the measure is necessary to tighten public spending, the human cost cannot be ignored. The elderly population, many of whom spent their lives contributing to the nation's economy, are now being asked to shoulder the burden of austerity measures they neither caused nor condoned. But the backlash doesn't stop there. Opposition parties have wasted no time capitalising on the controversy. Tory MPs have been quick to label the decision as cold-hearted and out of touch. One Conservative spokesperson declared, "This is Labour's true face, punishing the vulnerable while claiming to care about fairness." Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are now caught in a political storm. While Labour's leadership has tried to pivot the narrative, focusing on their broader economic policies and promises to uphold the triple lock on state pensions, this single decision threatens to overshadow their entire winter strategy. Even Labour insiders have expressed concern. A senior party source, speaking anonymously, admitted, "This could be a major unforced error. Pensioners are a core voting bloc, and this decision doesn't sit well with our message of economic compassion." Age UK and other advocacy groups have ramped up their lobbying efforts, calling for immediate intervention to mitigate the impact of the cuts. But time is running out. With winter already upon us, many pensioners are left wondering how they'll make it through the season. For now, the question remains, will Labour listen to the growing chorus of voices demanding change, or will they forge ahead, risking long-term political damage for short-term fiscal gains? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. What do you think of Rachel Reeves's decision? Will this policy haunt Labour in the next general election? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more breaking stories on the scandals that shape our nation.